Thank you. I imagine a world where stigmas, stereotypes, and lowered expectations can be transcended, not only for the benefit of those who bear them, but for the benefit of urban areas as well. And I am creating this world by sharing my life story with my fellow Houstonians and giving my thoughts on how a better future can be created for us all. Although my focus is on Houston, because after all, this is my home, I think you'll find that my lessons can be applied universally among many individuals and urban centers around the world. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? I was born on a balmy August night in the heart of downtown Houston. My delivery was very difficult on my mother and I. After many hours of painful labor, she hemorrhaged, losing a great deal of blood. I, being a birch delivery, had to be surgically removed from my mother's womb. I was cleaned and weighed and sent to the hospital nursery, where, just a few hours later, I was found blue and motionless. I wasn't breathing. I had no heartbeat. I was clinically dead. They revived me with the use of a defibrillator, where instantly my tiny body started to go into seizures. Because of the lack of oxygen I had sustained, my brain had gone through some degree of damage. But at least I was alive. At least my heart was beating again. Meanwhile, my mother, in her hospital room, got a knock on the door, where she was told that I had indeed died. Just a few hours later after that, she received another knock on the door, and they said, well, we revived him, but chances are he'll never walk nor talk, ever. Well, as you can see, I walked out on stage and I'm talking to you now. But recently I asked my mother, what thoughts were running through your head when you heard that news, that I would never walk nor talk? She said, I was happy. Happy just to have you. Keep in mind, just a few hours before that, she was told that I was gone. She was just happy to have the opportunity to be a mother, to nurture a part of herself. At that moment in time, she knew that a great challenge lay before us. But because she didn't see things as a tragic situation, things changed from a challenge to an opportunity. So I asked, well, Mom, how did we get from point A to point B? What were some of the lessons that you took away from all of these years? And she told me three things. The first was, you have to be realistic. There was no time for denial to say, oh, well, he'll be fine or things will work themselves out. No. You have to be honest about the situation that you're in, and you have to act. Thankfully, she was able to utilize the available resources that were there at the time. She found a kind of Head Start program for children with cerebral palsy, which is my official diagnosis. And through that, they were able to help me out. But she moved us across town so I could be closer to this resource. Lastly, she learned patience. She knew that we had a long road ahead of us, and it would be a process that would take years. In fact, I'm still in that process right now, continuing to hone my skills and my abilities to do things I never would have thought possible. So I started school in special education, worked my way up to regular classes, and by the 6th grade, I was in gifted and talented courses. So academically, I was able to show that I was capable. But my stutter became the major hurdle. And as you can probably imagine, it caused a lot of social anxiety. So I dealt with this by first becoming a bully, then becoming the class clown. And then I just realized, hey, I'll just be me. But nonetheless, imagine having something affect every single social interaction you have and not being able to control that. A major stutter left on its own can totally overshadow a person's life. Much like last year's Best Motion Picture, The King's Speech, feelings of panic and frustration in certain social situations became all too common for me. The best way to describe a stutter is with the analogy of an iceberg, in that when you see me get stuck on a word here and there, or when you see any facial contortions up here, you're only seeing that tip of the iceberg. At one point in time, all of this other stuff was going on beneath the surface. Fear, anxiety, hopelessness. I would carry all of this around with me every day. And let me tell you, it was exhausting. Just 3 years ago, I would have never imagined I could be up on a stage like this in front of you all today. But luckily, I was able to attend the McGuire Program for Stutterers, which uses a holistic method of controlling one's stutter. Armed with that new tool, I joined the Houston Heights Toastmasters, and I've been a proud member ever since. I've had the privilege of serving as president of that organization, and I've won several speech contests since then at different levels of competition. Now, who would have thought that a person with a severe stutter would even walk into a Toastmasters meeting, let alone become president, let alone start to win awards. But I was able to exceed those lower expectations expectations, exceed those assumptions, and do things that no one would have thought possible. Now, talking about expectations and assumptions, I want to move on from my story to our story as a city. And in doing that, I want to use a hypothetical really quickly. If you were to meet somebody named Mario Angelo Salinas, or see a guy walking down the street, what are some of the assumptions you might have about him? Where would you assume he was from? What would you assume the background of his family was? Would you use terms like native Texan, native Houstonian to describe him? Why or why not? And I know you're thinking, well, what does all of this have to do with us? He's just talking about himself. Well, I'll get to that. As a fourth generation Houstonian, I'm a very big fan of the work of Dr. Stephen Kleinberg of the Kinder Institute at Rice University. Dr. Kleinberg's work focuses on the social and demographic changes that have occurred within the Houston area over the past 30 years, which incidentally is about as long as I've been here. And what he's found is that within that time, Houston has undergone a tremendous demographic shift in that we were once a biracial city composed of mostly Anglos and African Americans to a very diverse cultural center with no real majorities whatsoever. We are all minorities. Did you know there's over 90 different languages spoken within the Houston city limits? Now, as you can see, Latinos make up the biggest segment of our population today. Just take note of that. And also, a big change that's going on is the age difference. Most succinctly put, the older you are, the higher the likelihood that you're Anglo. The younger you are, the higher the likelihood that you are not Anglo. And again, we can see here that the Latino population makes up a big part of that chunk here too of the younger people. And I bring this up, I know the Latino populations, because it must be said that Latinos rank lowest in every social indicator we have. Now, when you combine all of this, you see the challenge that lays before us as a town. And, you know, some Latinos have been here for a while, like me. Others haven't been here for so long. Now, when you're talking about immigration, there tends to be two views on the subject. The first one is what we call the dominant pessimistic viewpoint. And that is of a flood of foreigners coming in with an exploding population out to exploit our resources and take advantage of anything they can. The other is a different viewpoint, where this is just a continuation of the great American story that has made this nation a great one where folks can come here, work hard, and their children will become our future workers, voters, and taxpayers. Now, moving forward as a town, which one of these two viewpoints should we subscribe to? Well, in answering this, I would like to remind us that Texas is a historical buffer zone. Are we a western state? Are we a southern state? And I have the Six Flags up here, not because I'm promoting any theme parks, but just as a historical reminder that, again, change is constant here. How many languages have been spoken right here? How many people have claimed this part of the world as their own? And that story is still going on. So, and also to kind of hit on that first part, we can see that the longer Latinos are here, the higher their socioeconomic indicators go. They start to become more ingrained, more successful the longer they are here, just as their earlier European counterparts did. And also, the longer they are here, their attitudes and viewpoints tend to correspond with that of the larger U.S. society. So, things aren't as bad as some folks would like to paint them as. But, again, we must be realistic about the challenge that we face. Because we do face a very big hurdle. If things continue the way they are now, if the status quo persists, we are in danger of creating a permanent underclass here in the Houston area. And that is not good for any of us. We all want to exist in a vibrant, mobile society where people can work hard and transcend anything they wish. This is what we need. But again, we will not get there if we continue down the path that we are on right now. So, using some of the lessons earlier that I learned in my own life, I would like to kind of outline some of my thoughts on where we can go now. So, how can our challenge become an opportunity for us all? We have to be realistic. No matter what political spectrum you might subscribe to, the fact is, if we were to close off the borders today and not ever let one person into this country ever again, the fact is that the Latino population will play a huge role in our city, state, and country moving forward. That's just how it is. Also, we have to utilize the resources that are available to us. Of course, our best resource is our educational system. And if you're Latino in the Houston area, chances are you're going to an underperforming school. So we need to change that. We need to tweak that. And one example that comes to mind is that I know that the U.S. as a whole is lagging behind in math and science. Now, if I were a Latino youth in school, I would think it would be pretty cool to learn about the ancient Latin American cultures and how they were so advanced in their mathematical understandings, not only in that part of the world, but all over the world for that time. Now, imagine if you were a Latino youth coming home and you think, oh, wow, I got math and science in my DNA. I mean, that's a totally new perspective that our kids are not receiving at all. Lastly, we must be patient. We must understand that this is a long view kind of thing. We need to create inroads from our inner city neighborhoods and schools into the industries that make this such a vibrant local economy. Again, this will work out for everyone. There's no lose here. It's only win, only if we can get there. Before I close, although she couldn't be here, I have to say thank you to my mom, and I'm doing this for her, so thank you, Mom, I love you. And lastly, I just want to say that we need to band together as a region and make a better future for us all possible. We need to be honest. We need to utilize the resources that we have. The naysayers have a very loud voice, but they're not right all of the time. A better future can be had by us all if we are bold enough to create it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have some questions.
Sorry.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about how, what you think about how to set realistic goals. Because you were not expected to be able to walk or be able to speak. Mm-hmm. But, you know, was that a realistic goal?
Well, I mean, the thing is that we need, I need to back up here and say that we must never underestimate the power of the human spirit. It's so strong, and it has the power to drive us through some of the hardest things ever. And so within that, when you look at that, it's kind of hard to gauge what's realistic and not. Because again, if you have the heart, you can achieve some great things.
Wow. Do you have any practical words of advice about pursuing something and not being afraid to fail about it? To fail or...
Absolutely. I mean, hey, I mean, I'm a guy that when I wake up in the morning, I don't know how my day will be. I don't know what kind of social interaction I'll have. Some days my stutter is controllable. Other days it's not so controllable. But you know what? It's okay, because if you have the strength and drive within you, nothing else can take that away. And that's the key to it all. Your strength should come from within you, not some outside source or approval from someone else. If you have it in here, you can do things that you never thought possible.
Thank you so much.